right, so I think we've all had to try to build something or make something with someone else, and sometimes you get along with them while you're doing it, sometimes you don't. Gavin, have you ever had like a project like that when you were in school, or maybe even working with me trying to build these videos? That's gotta be tough.
It's gotta be so tough. No, it's actually pretty good working with you. I like you a lot, man.
Oh.
But it's not a school project, but I remember some of my buddies and I, we built a big pillow fort in our living room so we could have a Nerf war. So those were kind of like our walls and our defenses. So that was actually really fun. We got along pretty well, except when we started shooting each other with Nerf guns, but it was good. It worked out great.
That sounds awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Actually,
we should do that after this.
We're gonna do that later. So it can be difficult to work together with people, but sometimes people working together is actually, they could be working together for the wrong things. And that's actually what our Bible story is gonna kind of talk about today. So it's a really crazy story. It happens after, like, God creates the world, there's Adam and Eve, then later on there's Noah and the big boat. God basically starts over with humans, with Noah and his family, sends a flood, wipes out the rest of humanity because they're just so evil. And now Noah and his family, it's growing, there's lots of people on the earth again, and they kind of all move east in this one location, and it's just a giant people group, and they all speak one language, okay? And they basically, their technology, their great invention at the time was the brick. So some of you might have like brick houses. Well, this was like the start of that, and they're like, whoa, we've got this new technology, the brick. And we're gonna, not like Lego bricks, like actual bricks that your houses are built out of. So they're building this tower. They're like, we're gonna build an epic tower that's gonna reach all the way to the heavens where God is.
Well,
yeah, super tall. That's right. So, and this story is often called the Tower of Babel because actually the location is where, like, modern day, like, well, I don't know about modern day, but in the Bible, it was the city of Babylon, okay? So Babylon was like always the place where like evil kings and wickedness would like be centralized. So it all kind of started here. So if you've ever read this story or heard this story and be like, hey, what's going on here? Well, see, God is seeing humans working together, and it's all about themselves. It's all about pride and like, we're better than God. It's kind of the same as like Adam and Eve when the snake lied to him, and he's like, you don't need to trust God. You can be God yourself. Eat from the fruit and do your own thing, your will, not God's will. And so that's what's going on here is like they're building this tower kind of in defiance to God, like, we're awesome. We can be our own gods. And so they build this tower, and so God looks down from heaven and he's like, this isn't good. So here's what it says in Genesis chapter 11, verse 8 and 9. It says, so the Lord scattered them from there over all the earth, and they stopped building the city. That is why it was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole world. And from there, the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth. So if you didn't catch it, God actually like started to give people different languages. So he started confusing them. So they were able to work together when they all spoke the same language. But like if Gavin speaks English and I speak Spanish, but I don't understand English or he doesn't understand Spanish, we can't communicate with each other. It could be any language. If we're not speaking the same language, things aren't gonna work as well, right? So a bunch of people start speaking different languages, and so they can't build the building because they can't work together. So God's like, yeah, you gotta stop this. It's all about pride and selfishness. You guys gotta scatter, and then maybe we can work with you that way. So humans kind of always having trouble trusting God and wanting to do their own thing. And so that's why God had to come in, kind of a rescue situation, if you could look at it that way, because God always has a plan. Again, at the very beginning, he's promised a savior, promised someone to come in and eventually rescue us from evil and death. But in the meantime, he's also got these other plans where he's like, all right, you guys aren't really going the way you need to be going. So I'm going to come in and kind of help you along. And through Jesus, ultimately, we're rescued, and God's plan can take effect in our lives if we would just trust God. So I encourage you guys, like, when you're working with others, when you're working by yourself, always have the mindset of, am I doing this for myself or am I doing this for God? Do I trust God with my life or do I not? that's always something we should have in our minds when we're building anything, either by ourselves or with others. But even if you mess up, remember, we're coming back to our main point every time to remind you that God always has a plan. So, Gavin, why don't you summarize all this for us? See if I made any sense.
Yeah, so, gosh, all these people were here. They're not doing the good things that God wanted them to do. So then they started building a building. And it's not that God didn't like the building. It was the reason why they were building it. It was because they were basically wanting people to praise them. And I'm sure they were just doing their own thing because like, oh, look what we can do. We're so awesome. But God was like, no, I'm the awesome one that you should be worshiping. So then he confuses them so they can't work together. But ultimately that helps send everyone out into the world. And I assume that was God's plan?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
cool.
No, I'm saying that God, he wanted to scatter them first and foremost so that they wouldn't build this tower and keep doing something that was going to just lead to something worse. But yeah, ultimately, we have to remember, it might seem weird in this moment, but we have to remember like he's still got his rescue plan in effect. The plan that, he's going to work through a special family, which we're going to talk about soon, family of Abraham and the whole nation of Israel. And through that family comes our Savior,
Jesus.
You got it. Winner. And that is ultimately God's rescue plan. But the important thing to remember as we read this story today, we go through the awesome, crazy stories of the Bible, is that God always has a plan. So you guys keep talking about this in your small groups. We'll see you next week. And remember, God always has a plan.